Dr. Saleemul Huq, you're perhaps one of the very few uh, individuals who has gone to all of the conference of parties, right? So, I mean, this is going to be the 26th iteration this year. You've been to 25 of them. Uh, so put it in context for those of us who've never been a part of the discussions, and how do you see the evolution of climate negotiations, particularly now when we know what the challenges are, uh, particularly when we know what is happening in the US with the constant changes between the Republicans and the Democrats. Uh, how do you see us moving forward? Are these conference of parties still going to be a platform where we'll continue to negotiate for another 25 years, or is it time that we just put all of that behind us and come to a consensus whereby we can take concrete decisions that favor those of us who are most vulnerable?
Thank you very much, Imran, and thank you, SDPI, for organizing this excellent event and inviting me. So my answer to your question is that 25 years is enough. We didn't do enough in 25 years. Another 25 years of doing the same is, Einstein's definition of insanity, doing the same thing with no result, expecting that you'll get another result every year. Not going to happen. And so I would argue that the time has come to, put COPs to rest. They are no longer an effective means, and I'll give you several reasons why I say that. First of all, I'll describe a little bit about what a COP is and what it's supposed to do and what it then fails to do. A COP is actually a huge event held in a city around the world. Every year it's hosted by a country from a different continent for 2 weeks. The first week is an officials level meeting. The second week is a high level politicians meeting. Sometimes heads of state come and they make a final decision. In theory, the government officials who are the negotiators have 2 weeks. They start on a Monday. They go on week 1 and then week 2 until Friday of second week, which is 12 full working days, to finish their negotiations. But in the last few years, they never finish. 12 whole days of negotiations, and Friday evening comes of the second week, haven't finished. Then they go on all night Friday, haven't finished. All night Saturday, haven't finished. This is what happened in Madrid. We went into Sunday afternoon before we finally finished. And even then, we didn't finish everything. There were a number of items that were not resolved, and they are going to COP26. Now, one of the consequences of that is that many of the poorest countries with whom I work, they cannot stay on for the 2 extra days. The government officials, they bought a ticket, they have DSA to stay until the Friday. They're supposed to fly out Friday night or Saturday morning. They can't stay on for the 2 extra days. So most of my delegation, I advise the least developed countries negotiators in the negotiation. Most of them had to leave. They were not there in COP. In fact, one of the lessons I've learned over 25 years of COP is I never buy my ticket on the Saturday. I buy my return ticket on Sunday because it's going to go over time. And I know it's going to go over time. If it doesn't go over time for some reason, then I have Saturday in hand and I can go and be a tourist and see the city that I've been in for the last 2 weeks and no time to see the city. But it doesn't happen. Every time it stays on, it goes on extra time. And this is deliberate, deliberate. It could have finished 2 days earlier on time, but many countries don't finish it because they don't want these countries to be there at the end. And when these countries' delegates go home and they find out the final result of the COP, what do they see? The things they had been fighting for 2 weeks have disappeared because they weren't there to defend them in the end. So the way it's done is a very, very inequitable format. Even though in theory, all countries are represented, all countries are able to put their voices, the way it was conducted has actually defeated that purpose. So it's not really fit for purpose, even at the best of times. The second reason I will say is that the core negotiators are from governments. The rest of us who go as observers, I go as an observer, we go to network. We do side events and meetings, and Greta Thunberg goes on a big march in the city. We all go on the march. These are all nice things, but none of them are essential. The countries can meet, they can talk. During the COVID-19 crisis, they have been meeting. We all have permanent representatives in New York at the UN headquarters. They are meeting every day. They are having their meetings in New York. We have a big UN delegation in Geneva at the Geneva headquarters. That is the headquarters of many UN agencies. They are meeting every day in the COVID. There's a UNEP headquarters in Nairobi. We have delegations in Nairobi. They are meeting every day. And they have not postponed because of COVID. They are carrying on. Only COP26 got postponed because of COVID. And to me, the postponement was the biggest mistake because climate change didn't take a year off. The UK decided to take a year to hold COP26 a year later. Just because they can't hold it on time and they can't hold it doesn't mean that climate change can't be addressed. Climate change is waiting. It hasn't waited. In fact, it's happened during the 12 months of the postponement of COP26 from November 2020 to November 2021. I'm going to argue that climate change happened during this period. We crossed the threshold of moving into a climate change world. As we just heard from Fahad, the scientific community is now able to attribute impacts of climate change because of the temperature rise that has already been made by human induced emissions of greenhouse gases. And I'll give you one example from our part of the world here. We got hit by super cyclone Amphan in May of last year. Super cyclones have happened in past decades, and they have killed tens of thousands of people. In this case, it became a super cyclone while it was in the Bay of Bengal because the sea surface temperature of the Bay of Bengal was 2 degrees above normal. And it hit Kolkata in West Bengal, and then it hit Bangladesh. Fortunately, we have a very, very good cyclone warning and evacuation system. We evacuated more than 3 million people. The death rate came down to a few dozens only, and that was mainly fishermen who were out at sea, didn't get back to land in time. But nevertheless, it caused a lot of damage, and there are victims of Amphan today who are still living on embankments because they can't go home. Either their homes were destroyed or their land has been salinized by the seawater. So the loss and damage from human-induced climate change is a reality, and it has happened in the period when the COP has been postponed. So to me, first of all, the COP postponement was a big mistake. Secondly, not holding talks by some means, whether we do it virtually or we do it in New York, in locations where the countries are represented, has been a big mistake. The postponement and in going forward with COPs, who knows when we'll have a normal COP? Even now, we don't know if we'll be able to go to Glasgow. The UK government, is putting on a brave face saying they'll have a in-person COP. Very, very doubtful whether they can get a in-person COP with everybody there. They can get some people there, but they're not going to be able to get everybody there. I'll stop there for now.